Hello, I'm Trish Lynch from IOHR here in London. Thank you for being with us on another episode of our Human Rights TV. Homelessness is devastating and it's dangerous. Research conducted by aid organisations shows that people sleeping rough on the streets are almost 17 times more likely to have been the victim of violence and are over 9 times as likely to take their own lives than the general population. With us today is Carla Ecola, a homelessness outreach worker and founder of the Outside Project, a crisis night shelter service comprising of a former tour bus remodelled to provide housing and care for homeless members at the LGBTIQ+ community who feel that they're on the outside of mainstream government support services due to the prejudice that they feel from society and even from their own homes. Carla, good to have you with us. Thank you for being with us. Now, you're no stranger to homelessness. In your 20s, you moved to London and you spent many years as a homeless person. Tell me first what it was like to be homeless on the streets of London, and also if you feel that this has spurred you on to create your own mobile shelter.
Yeah, definitely. My experience of homelessness was like a lot of young people who weren't really able to find stable accommodation, afford rent, moved into squats, spent a lot of time sofa surfing, and that went on for several years throughout my 20s. When I first came to London, I think it's really difficult to kind of manage multiple issues that you might have and survive in a city like this. So I think not just affecting young people, but the LGBTIQ+ community a little bit more as well. So a lot of the LGBTIQ+ community moved to London for a fresh start. They go to these kind of beacon cities where they can be around other members of the community, like London, like Manchester, big cities, not necessarily making a great plan. And when it all falls apart, they kind of find sofas and friends to stay with amongst the community, and they're homeless, but they don't really see that because they're not, in a doorway on the street.
I must say it's a pretty cool idea to choose a rock and roll bus formerly owned by Status Quo no less to use as a mobile shelter. Tell me where the idea came from and how it's been received.
It wasn't my idea. There's quite a few of them around the UK at the moment that have completely gutted old route masters and remodelled them and done a fantastic job. So that kind of inspired Mark Brennan, who works for Housing Justice, which is a charity that run winter shelters in London. He's on our steering group for the project, and he made that suggestion. And I was an outreach worker, and the rest of the team all had really busy jobs. And we had no idea how to renovate a route master, so we just looked straight into getting a tour bus. So it had already been fitted, and we were just really lucky to find band services that had one for sale at a really low price.
Tell me about the misconceptions about homeless people. People assume that they're lazy, that they don't want to work, that they must have mental health issues, that maybe they're drug addicts. What's your take on this? Why do you think there are so many misconceptions about the homeless?
I think that what people see is like that real kind of, the iceberg of why someone becomes homeless. So they might see somebody who's been living on the street for a certain amount of time that has now got addiction issues or really quite serious mental health issues because they're not linked into any mental health services anymore because they're leaving these kind of desperate lives that they're living on the street, so they're not getting the support that they need. So I think that they're just seeing those points rather than all of the causes behind it.
I suppose people sleeping rough on the streets, that's the visible face of being homeless, isn't it?
Yeah, so people sleeping in doorways and visibly homeless, that really has got to that point where they've hit rock bottom.
Official government figures indicate that there are about 307,000 citizens currently sleeping on the streets or in temporary accommodation across the country. Now, this is 13,000 more than this time last year. Why do you think homelessness is such a crisis here in the UK?
I think the issue around rent, and there's no rent control here. There's no kind of monitoring of the housing. It's like a housing crisis, isn't there? Jobs as well, 0-hour contracts. So yeah, I think there's like multiple issues that are causing homelessness. There's not like one single thing, but yeah, I think it's just capitalism in general. People just like go in for what they can get the most out of rather than what's good for society.
I suppose the relationships breaking down, families breaking apart, alcohol and drugs are obviously going to be a problem as well, and a reduction in the benefits too.
Yeah, universal credit is a nightmare. I think we'll see a lot more people becoming homeless because of reforms to the benefit system. Closures of mental health units as well, like long-term mental health stays, yeah, drug and alcohol services. So yeah, cuts to support services really as well.
In the UK, 1 in every 200 people are deemed as homeless, which I must say I found quite frightening. But then when you look at London, the capital city, it's actually 1 in 50. Now, do you think that these are the real figures? We spoke about the hidden homeless a while ago. Do you think that these people are factored into those numbers?
No, I don't think anyone can really say how many people are hidden homeless or homeless in London, because we just don't see them. I mean, I've been on street counts. I was an outreach worker, and I knew that the numbers, like the data that is recorded, it just doesn't add up to what we see. It's literally just who's out on the night when you're doing those kind of things. And with hidden homelessness, how are you supposed to know? Homeless person units, they don't write down when anyone makes an approach to the council. You know, someone will come in and say, "Oh, I don't have anywhere to stay," and they'll signpost them somewhere, and they don't record that anywhere. So I think the data is completely skewed.
Now, you mentioned the hidden homeless. Tell me exactly who the hidden homeless are and where would we find them?
Well, you're not going to find them because they're hidden, but they'll be in squats and parks, and some people have like living underneath railway arches and places like that you know that an outreach worker is just not going to see. And I know that because I was an outreach worker. Yeah. So you're not really able to go hunting through these derelict buildings and things like that when you're in that kind of job. So yeah, there's that. People who are sofa surfing, people who are using the club scene, chemsex, survival sex, so spending weekends with people that they don't really like.
Just to have a bed for the night?
Yeah, just somewhere to sleep. Like hustling, so they have like somewhere to sleep and maybe they'll get a bit of cash out of it as well. Things like that. So that's the kind of the hidden homelessness amongst our community. People who are in shelters and temporary accommodation as well. They're not anywhere stable. They're not able to move on with their life at all because they don't know when they're going to have to leave that place. So they're homeless too.
Are there people who are homeless, like the hidden homeless that you're just talking about, that never come to the attention of anybody?
Yeah, so we're talking, even the ones that actually go into the council aren't recorded. So there's many more that wouldn't even bother. You know, I never approached the council and said, "Oh, I don't have anywhere to stay," or "I'm living in a squat." You know, for several years, there's many more people like that don't really recognise that they're homeless or that they actually owed a duty or that there is assistance out there for them. So they don't even try. They just sofa surf, as I say.
The Mayor of London stated that in recent years the number of people on our streets has doubled between the years of 2010 and 2016, and that he wants to put an end to this enduring scar on the city. Tell me what you think about the Mayor's initiative to combat homelessness.
I think it's good that he's putting money into homelessness services. I'm not sure why some of them stopped and they're starting again. Like the kind of SIB teams, like social impact bond teams. If he'd have just kept those going, so we need like permanent services there rather than kind of like these contracts for a few years that disappear and then they come back. And yeah, I just think that, and the return of roll-in shelters as well. I mean, we set up our own shelter because we could see that there was a need for that. Again, it's a pilot shelter, but it's definitely needed all year round. But it's the same for the wider community as well. Outreach workers and members of the public and people who find themselves in this situation of having nowhere to go need to be able to access directly somewhere a bed for the night so that they don't end up on the street. Because as soon as someone hits the street, give it a couple of weeks, they become entrenched. It's much, much harder for them to move away.
How many nights can they stay on your mobile shelter?
They could stay for as long as we're open. So it's been like, if we've had someone that was there from day one, and they've got a new job now and they start work next week, and hopefully they'll have their wage in time for them finding somewhere to stay, and we're hooking them up with a rent deposit scheme. But yeah, it's just taken that little bit longer for her. But we've had people that have stayed just for a few nights as well. So it's really just until they've got things sorted.
According to a recent report, 2016, by Stonewall Housing, they said that people from the LGBTIQ plus community are more likely than anyone else to be homeless. Why is this?
Well, I think if you start at the beginning of like, I don't know, if you can kind of like go through the ages. If you're at school and you're bullied at school, then you're less likely to go to college and you're less likely to move on to university. So you're on the back foot.
So it has a domino effect from day one almost.
Yeah, pretty much. So you're not going to get as good a job, or if you go into work and you're discriminated against there, it can be quite difficult. We're more likely to suffer with mental health issues. We're more likely to be kicked out by our parents or our family, or different people that we live with. Shared housing can be really difficult unless you find a group of friends to stay with, or people that are kind of comfortable with your sexuality or gender identity. So there's just a lot of different factors that can lead to homelessness, as you're growing up and doing things like that. But then as you get older, then there's that other kind of pressure again. It's like not being able to find work or facing discrimination in the workplace, breakdown of family, when you kind of realise your true identity when you're a bit older as well. People are just kicked out of their marital homes because it feels like they've kind of been lying to their partner because they've just come out as being trans, but it might have just taken them a lot longer to kind of figure that out. So people just become instantly homeless.
Now, your project is the very first centre that caters just for the LGBTIQ plus community. Why has nothing like this been done before?
I don't know. We don't know. We did meet up and talk about it. That was the first meeting that we had. It was like, why hasn't this been done before? No one really seems to know. It just hasn't. I guess it's when you think of gender identity responsive services. When was the first women's only hostel or refuge? When did that come about, and why did that come about? I think it was just self-organisation of women that said, we need this. So I think that's exactly what our community has done. We've got to a point where it's like, we need this, and so we've kind of come together and gone out and done it for ourselves to really just demonstrate, that we need it.
Tell me what kind of support or funding that you've received from the government and how you've been received by the wider community.
We haven't sought or received any funding from the government. We're totally self-funded by the LGBTIQ plus community in London. So it's been fundraising throughout summer. We launched at London Pride, and we've just been invited to events in our venues really. So this one here is in Lime Wharf, where we have an artist residency as a project as well. This is like a recruitment drive and a comedy show. So people were just getting in touch with us through our Facebook and saying, it's my birthday, or I have this event, bring your bucket. So there's our bucket. And that's pretty much how we did it, and through crowdfunding as well. So it's just people who have experienced this themselves and they know how important it is. I would wake up and I'd have so many emails from Just Giving, people putting hundreds of pounds in, when they'd got paid, because they know that it's really needed.
Tell me about the kind of networking that you're doing to help people get off the streets, and then once they are off the streets, to stop them going back out there.
So we all work in the sector. So we kind of had those connections already to different day centres and projects. So we've been going to conferences and joining teams, team meetings, and we went to the Outreach Workers Network as well. They gave us a £1,000 grant actually, seed funding when we first started out, so that was really great. We kind of going out and just talking to people and really kind of advising them on how to support our community when we do signpost them to their service.
How can people get more involved or donate?
So they can check our website underneath the Contact Us link. That's our application form to be a volunteer. To donate, check our website. There's like donate buttons there. There's donate buttons on our Facebook and Twitter. We kind of set up Just Givings all the time for different things that we need. So like just recently, we did one for the Christmas period, raised a certain amount of money. We were able to take all of our guests out for Christmas dinner, and we've been able to renovate all the electrics on the bus as well, which is really, really good. Different things, just keep looking out for it.
So all the information's on your website, and we will of course give the details. Carla, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this episode of IOHR TV, bringing human rights into focus. Join us again next time. Until then, goodbye.